If you follow politics, if you work in politics, if you report on politics, you generally understand that every American president through foreign policy makes decisions that lead to people dying. It could be a drone strike. It could be cutting key medical aid to another country. It could be sending people to war. So, through foreign policy, presidents cause death. That's not a new thing. But the Trump administration has turned deadly in a way that is different, in a way that is much more easily preventable. Elizabeth Drew wrote a really good article about this for Project Syndicate, and she points out that the Trump administration has turned deadly simply because Donald Trump ignored readily available advice from scientists and other knowledgeable advisors from day one on the issue of coronavirus. Donald Trump was told about the risks of doing nothing back in December and January, and now he says nobody knew, nobody could have imagined. Trump was given the pandemic playbook by the Obama administration, color-coded 69 pages, and ignored it, and now says nobody could have expected this. But we know intelligence agencies were warning him. Science agencies were warning him. Public health agencies were telling him what was potentially coming. And he also had been briefed, his administration had been briefed by the outgoing Obama administration in 2017 on exactly how to deal with a pandemic. And Trump never focused on it, and he always ignored it. He dismissed the virus. He said it wouldn't be worse than the flu. He said we had 15 cases, which would soon be zero. He bragged that nobody had died. He said it's under control. And of course, it was all wrong, and it has been deadly. Trump could have just not invoked, but utilized the Defense Production Act a while ago to force the production of much needed medical supplies. But he was successfully lobbied by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry not to do that. And so he waited and waited, and we fell further and further behind. He didn't mobilize the federal stockpile of ventilators and other supplies, later having his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, claim in dystopian fashion that the stockpile is ours, not the state's, in a very sinister, ominous press briefing last Thursday. And all of this led to far more death than necessary. Trump played favorites with states. Regularly, we get reports that red state governors were getting everything they asked for in terms of supplies and equipment, while many blue state governors were not. And Trump continued and continues to blame systems he inherited, which is code for blame Obama. Trump is negotiating, in some cases, against states for medical supplies that those states need, while insisting states have to go out and get their stuff and blaming states for shortages that they experience. Trump is regularly using war language to try to weaponize the virus as a political tool for re-election. And so the decisions that he makes have always been primarily influenced by political calculations and political expediency. And in the background of all of this, we hear lame economic arguments made, which essentially are arguments that say it's okay for more people should die in exchange for the economy. The economy is meant to be open. The country is meant to be open. The cure cannot be worse than the disease, or we can't allow it to be worse than the disease. And of course, this ignores the reality that from day one, if we had had a proper 6-week shutdown, we would have prevented the need for these overlapping partial shutdowns that still are going to do economic damage, but won't actually fix the problem once and for all. It's almost impossible to do a worse job than Donald Trump did. Many small business owners I know, people who just run a restaurant, would have been able to manage this better than Donald Trump, given all of the resources that he had at his disposal, many of which he chose to ignore. And if you want to play the business game, any modest, humble, professor I had in business school would have been able to manage this better than Donald Trump, because most people who actually understand business and are good at business understand the importance of deferring to experts, which Donald Trump seems essentially unable to do. Any doctor who runs a medical practice would have managed this better than Donald Trump. If Trump had done nothing other than to say, I'm appointing a coronavirus czar, like Ronald Klain, maybe Barack Obama's Ebola czar, and just let them handle it and stayed out of it, we would be far better off. So yes, presidents lead to death through foreign policy and through domestic policy in a lot of different ways. But the Trump presidency has now become deadly in a way that is very different than what we normally say when we say presidents lead to death through foreign policy. It's very, very ugly, and we don't yet know how bad it's going to get.